In this episode of the Orange Nerd Show, we are talking about the future of Walt Disney Feature Animation or Walt Disney Animation Studios. I got a fantastic question from a subscriber. We're going to talk about it, break it down up next on the Orange Nerd Show. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. With the Orange Nerd Show, we focus on everything except the theme park. So we do studio stuff, corporate stuff, streaming, all that good stuff. So we kind of break away from the parks and talk about everything else going on with Disney and nerd culture, etc. Now, you're probably wondering, where is George? Where is the Italiano? The Italiano is having computer issues, so he should be back very, very soon. But I'm flying solo today, just talking some studio stuff with everybody today. So it'll be a lot of fun. So I got a fantastic question from Lonely Abandoned Beagle. Now, this was actually a question DM'd to me on Twitter, and it was a lengthy question, but it was meaty in terms of in terms of my answer and the context. So I wanted to give it the proper kind of platform to answer it, right? Because a lot of times in the Q&As, we get a ton of questions and we kind of go through them all. But on this question in particular, there's a lot going on here. So I want to dedicate an entire video to this question. So I'm going to read the question and we're going to kind of break it down along the way. So Lonely Beagle here says, after the apparent box office failure of Wish, how should Walt Disney Animation Studios, Walt Disney and Meet the Robinsons taught them, keep moving forward to stay alive in the future? I have one idea on what they can do. Okay, so he's going to break it down. We're going to talk about it. So it says here, my idea is that after Susie Unessy's Disney animated movie next year, and after Zootopia 2 and Frozen 3 parts 1 and 2 come out in 25, 26, and 27, Disney should go back to what they shouldn't have stopped doing in 2011. And he's referring to traditional animation, hand-drawn animation. And I completely agree with Beagle on this. They should never have stopped creating hand-drawn animation for their animated features, which is to go back to making hand-drawn animated full-length feature films, beginning with a Mickey Mouse movie, interesting, in Q4 2028 by the name of The Search for Mickey Mouse, which they can put back into production. Okay, so this was a Mickey Mouse movie they were going to do, and it got canned, it got canceled. Okay, so which they can put back into production with the duo of writers and directors from Once Upon a Studio helming it, especially if Once Upon a Studio wins Best Animated Short at the Oscars. Okay, so here's the thing. We're going to stop here. We're going to talk about this. Once Upon a Studio was one of those rare Disney moments, at least lately, right? Disney's under a lot of fire right now. Like everyone is, look, a lot of it is justified, right? But a lot of it is just also fashionable to just shit on Disney. But Disney's going through it right now, right? Especially with the fans and with PR and what have you. Once Upon a Studio was that rare win where pretty much everybody was kind of united in wow, this was something really fantastic that came out of Disney. It was a beautiful animated short, a very well done, beautifully animated, and now it's up for Best Animated Short at the Oscars. So it was a success, a huge success all the way around. So I agree with Beagle here. I think that they should absolutely get the duo that helmed Once Upon a Studio to do this Search for Mickey Mouse movie. Now, in terms of a Mickey Mouse movie, do I think that's a good idea? Absolutely. Look, this wouldn't be the first time Mickey Mouse would be featured in a full-length animated movie, right? Everyone remembers, in Fantasia with the Sorcerer's Apprentice, which was an amazing, iconic scene. But also, Mickey Mouse was also featured in Fun and Fancy Free, the package film, which I believe was in the 40s, if I'm not mistaken. So Mickey has had a history of making appearances in full-length animated movies. Here's the other thing. Mickey Mouse, despite being a very, very old character, 100 years old, pushing 100 years old, he very much, what's the word for it? He's still very relevant though, right? Because I think Disney's done a really good job at kind of fostering Mickey Mouse and keeping him in the cultural awareness. The Paul Rudish Mickey Mouse shorts that have been around for a long time now, that ran a really long time, years, are wildly popular. Very, very popular. Those shorts have run longer than most Disney animated cartoon shows on television. You know, even the Disney afternoon shows only ran for a few seasons. The Paul Rudish stuff has been going on for a long time, popular enough where they even built a massive attraction in the parks with Runaway Railway. So Mickey is still a big draw for families and children. So to create a Mickey Mouse movie in hand-drawn animation, kind of coming off of the success of Once Upon a Studio, I think that is absolute gold. I think that would be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So absolutely, Beagle, I would agree with you. I think that's a good idea. Now, he goes on to say, I know we have that upcoming Disney Plus sequel series to Princess and the Frog that Walt Disney Animation Studios in Burbank and in Vancouver are working on, called Tiana, which is due out for release either in late 24 or in 2025. But should that prove to be a success, they shouldn't just leave hand-drawn animation again after that. I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you, Beagle. They should not. Look, here's the thing. I'm not one of those I'm not one of those like those absolutists, I guess you can call it, where I'm not one of those people that say like, we should dump CGI and you just go all back to hand-drawn animation. I think there is room in this animation industry, in this space, for hand-drawn and for CGI and for stop motion and for claymation. These are all beautiful, forms of animation. And why not have all these mediums in our toolbox, depending on the story? So, why not utilize hand-drawn animation for a story that works for hand-drawn animation? And then you can utilize CGI for the stories that work better for CGI. Like a film like Wreck-It Ralph, CGI is perfect for a movie like that. It's about video games, but maybe the fairy tale stuff, the more storybooky stuff, maybe we go back to hand-drawn for those kind of stories, right? So they can kind of pick and choose. But you're absolutely right, Beagle, they should have never gotten rid of hand-drawn animation. I would beef up the hand-drawn animation at Walt Disney Animation Studios, and it shouldn't be all CGI. I think they should definitely go back and have a little bit more of a mix. Now, I'm realistic. I understand we're never going to go back to the processes that we had before, right? Like, it's unlikely that even if we have hand-drawn animation, that we're going to get like the painted cells and that whole thing. I think that even if it is hand-drawn, it would likely be painted on the computer and all that, which is fine. That's fine. We can't, beggars can't be choosers, essentially, right? I'm totally fine with that. But yeah, to see more hand-drawn animation in the full-length feature animated film space, 1000%, 1000%. So he goes on to say, and with other studios like Studio Gilby, Sony, and Illumination kicking their butts at the box office, despite Elemental breaking even to give the promise of a better future for Pixar, post-pandemic and post-Disney Plus, Disney needs to find a way to stay relevant or they'll lose their standing in terms of a big animation studio in the Hollywood industry. Now, here's the thing, Beagle, that I kind of disagree with you a little bit here. In terms of Illumination, it hasn't been all wins necessarily. It's kind of weird because I think that a lot of times people sort of confuse profit with demand, right? So Disney animated films like Wish didn't necessarily perform worse at the box office than Migration. I think even technically Wish's box office opening weekend was even higher than that of Migration, if I'm not mistaken. But the thing that Illumination, I think, is kicking, Disney's butt on is profit, those profit margins, because the budgets for these Illumination films are very small. Like Migration, it was only like $75 million, where Wish was $200 million, right? So the demand is there. Like, Disney's getting butts in seats, they are. I mean, technically, Wish got a little more butts in seats than Migration did. But the profit isn't there because it cost more. So the budgetary thing is a completely different topic than like the demand. So Disney is getting people in theaters. It's the #1 studio right now for the year in terms of that gross box office, which shows you people are going to Disney movies, but they're not making as much profit as studios as Universal and Illumination because they cost too much. So they're two separate issues. The demand for Disney is there, people are going, but they're not making as much money as Universal because those budgets are just way too high, and they got to get those budgets down. They absolutely got to get those budgets down. And I do want to say too, it does look like Migration has legs. It looks like it's performing very well this weekend, which is kind of to be expected because you had, Christmas last week and, or last weekend or earlier this week. And obviously families were all wrapped up with the Christmas season, and now they're coming back this weekend, because it's less busy for kids and stuff. So it kind of makes sense, but it does seem like it is performing well. And hey, my hat's off to Migration. I've said it many times. I'm a big animation fan. Animation is what really got me into this Disney fandom. It was animation and my love for animation that got me into the theme parks. And so even though Illumination is Universal, it's still part of that overall animation industry, which I think is having a real hard time right now in theaters overall. So if Migration can do very well, that's awesome. I'm rooting for it. I hope it does. Animation is going through it right now. A lot of families don't want to spend $100 to take the family, all their kids, to the theater. They're very choosy now, I mean, unless you're Mario or Spider-Man, usually, they're going to opt for the streaming service because it's just so expensive. So any wins we can get in the theater space with animation is good for animation overall. Okay, so he goes on to continue. And the only way they can maintain their strength is if they do a hand-drawn Mickey Mouse movie for 2028 and work on it now while also finishing up the Disney Plus Tiana series and make sure it's good enough, hit to make Disney go back to hand-drawn animation for the foreseeable future. That, and they also have to focus on ensuring both stories have strong qualities in and of themselves. But what do you think? Am I onto something, or is there more to this than I am believing? No, I think you are onto something, Beagle. I really do. I think that we need to get as many hand-drawn animated wins under our belt. I think Once Upon a Studio was a real eye-opener for Disney when they saw the critical praise for that short, when they saw the fans united in their love for this short. I think that was a wake-up call for Disney, and look at right now, Disney, they, like you said, I mean, they're not doing as great as they can be in animation. So they're looking for ways to get even more butts into those theaters. And if they see something like, Once Upon a Studio doing really, really well, I mean, they'd be foolish not to at least consider more hand-drawn animation and consider putting that into theaters. There's a market for that. There's absolutely a market for that. And like I said earlier in the video, Beagle, Mickey Mouse is still a hot property. Those Paul Ruddish Mickey Mouse shorts are fire. They are so popular. I'm not a huge fan of them myself. They're okay, but kids love them. I mean, they have really done well. And that series has run a really long time. Like I said, even for a Disney animated TV show, a lot of these shows that Disney does, these animated ones, only last like 2 or 3 seasons. Even the DuckTales reboot, which I actually loved, that was only I think 3 seasons or 3 or 4, maybe. I'm not sure. But it didn't last very long. Not like the Paul Ruddish Mickey Mouse shorts. Okay. So Mickey's a huge draw, but it has to be done right. It has to be done right. So great ideas, Beagle. I completely agree with you. Let's get a Mickey Mouse full-length animated movie. We're coming up on Mickey's 100th birthday very soon. Why not get that out there in celebration for Mickey and strike while the iron's hot? So great question, Beagle. I appreciate all your support for the channel. You have a fantastic question. So it's always good to see you in the live chat, sir. But everybody at home, what do you think about this? What's the future of Walt Disney animation and the traditional animation and that hand-drawn medium? Do you think they should bring it back like Beagle is suggesting? Is this the proper way to do so, as Beagle is suggesting? Would you support a full-length Mickey Mouse animated cartoon or not? So comment down below. We would love to hear your feedback. Beagle, thank you again for the question. And as always, everybody stay nerdy.